Hello and welcome to the Astro Vegan Cafe. I thought today I would show you how I make my bread. It's super fast and easy, and it's really flexible too. And I make bread all the time, and it only takes a few minutes. So I'm going to show you the whole process from beginning to end. And so what I start out with is, I start out with 500 grams of flour, and you can use white flour or whole wheat flour or a mix. 500 grams is about 4 cups. 4, like you don't pack them or tap it down or anything, just 4 loose cups of flour. Not heaping, but just, I weigh it. So 500, and here I've got 537, so I got a little bit more than I want. Let's take a spoon out. There we go. Okay, so 500 grams of flour and water. And I just use room temperature water. I don't bother warming it up or anything like that. We want 370, I'm using whole wheat flour. So for whole wheat flour, we want 370 grams of water. If I were making white bread, I would use 300. 370 is about 2 cups. 300 is about 1 3/4 cups. And if you're making half and half, you'd use something in the middle, like around, 335. Okay, so that's 374. That's fine. And then you will want to use some kind of sweetener just for the yeast to eat on. It has to be real sweetener. It can't be like, aspartame or saccharin or whatever. I just happen to have agave nectar, so I'm using it before, because I got some for free. Before that, I had molasses, and I used that. You could use sugar. You could use whatever you want. You'll need about a teaspoon, just like a little bit. If you want your bread sweeter, though, you can sure use more. If you like a sweeter bread, you can use up to a tablespoon. And then for yeast, I use a teaspoon. And if I'm making whole wheat, I use a rounded teaspoon. If I'm making white, I use just an even teaspoon. And just put it right in there. And we'll add the salt in a couple of minutes, but I don't add the salt right on top of the yeast, even though I've also heard that doesn't really matter. And I use a knife to mix my bread because it's easier to cut through it and get the moisture all through it. So I just start by stirring it, and then as it gets thicker, I sort of cut through it, and that lets the moist areas get to the dry areas. And again, I just scrape the sides of my bowl. And then when it gets to kind of like that sort of consistency, that's when I add the salt. Salt theoretically kills yeast or something. I use about a half a teaspoon of salt. If you like your bread saltier, use more. I think you can use probably up to a teaspoon safely. Safely as in it won't taste weird. Of course, you could use more if you wanted to. You can actually make bread without salt as well. So if you don't want any added salt, you don't have to use it. So I'm just stirring around here. As you can see. And you can add other things to your bread. I put in a tablespoon of whole blended lemon the other day. You could add herbs. You could put in cinnamon and raisins. You'd put them all in, basically at the same time, at the same time as the yeast and the sugar. So now it's getting to where, it's a little hard to cut it. I'm just going to take it in hand and just start mushing it around. Just right in the bowl. And I'm just sort of folding in toward the middle and pushing. Folding it in toward the middle and pushing. Now I'm going to get this all off the edges of the bowl so it can all be incorporated. And I'm just pushing it. Fold in a side and push. Fold in an end and push. And you see, I'm not doing this on my counter, so I don't have to flour my counter and get flour all over my counter and make a big mess out of my kitchen. I'm just doing it all in this bowl. This is a 1-gallon size bowl. And it will work out to be a good size for 1 loaf of bread. And then once it looks like it's all incorporated, like it does now, I'm just going to do it like 10 more times. I'm going to knead it about 10 more times, and then I'm going to let it sit and rise. It's 4, 5, 6. It feels a little bit sticky, which is okay, because wheat bread is going to absorb more liquid than white would. So it's just a little bit sticky, but it's not at all wet feeling. Okay, and that is something like 10, if it is not 10. And now we're just going to let this sit for, it'll probably take about an hour. And it could be, but you could do it anywhere from, say, like you know, 50 minutes to an hour and a half, I'm sure would be fine. And I'll show you what it looks like when we come back, and then we'll do the next step. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in a bit. Welcome back. It is about 6 weeks later. The other bread, there was a mishap. It came out great, but it was not suitable for filming. So here I am with a new loaf of bread at about the same stage. So roughly, in real time, it would have been about an hour later. You can see the bread has risen, and if you press it a little bit, it's soft. But anyway, all I do at this point is I take it out of the bowl. And I just give it a few turns, just a few easy turns, more to squish it down than anything else, and I don't do that much to it. I just give it a few turns, and I put it in my loaf pan. I use a silicone loaf pan because you don't have to put any oil in it, and the loaf just slips out. It is absolutely wonderful. And so just kind of put the bread in the pan, squish it down a little bit. You know, you kind of want to, you know, get it more or less even, but it's not that critical. It doesn't matter if it's humping a little bit here, if it's flat here, if it doesn't quite fill the ends. Basically just put it in the pan. And if the bread's stickier than this, like if it's real sticky on your hands, don't worry about it. Just shove it in there. And if it's too sticky to give turns on the counter, then don't do it. Just shove it in the pan. It'll all be just fine. So that's the next step, is get it in the pan, and then we're just going to let it sit to rise. I don't cover it or anything. I just let it sit there. I don't worry about it being warm or cold or any particular temperature. Just put it wherever it's convenient, and I'll come back, and it'll be about another hour or so, and then I'll pop it in the oven. So thanks for watching. And welcome back again. It has been an hour and 10 minutes, and you can see that the bread has risen. This is about when I usually start to bake it, when it's about here in the pan. And sometimes it can take less than an hour and 10 minutes, and sometimes it can take more. It's not that important how long it takes. If nothing's happening at all, of course, you know, that would be relevant. But so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bake it at about 375 for about 27 minutes. I like to use my toaster oven because then I don't have to do any preheating. But if you're not using a toaster oven, you know, you want to preheat your oven, probably use the center rack or maybe a little bit below. And then about 27 minutes on 350, and then I'll catch you when we take it out, and you can see it then. Thanks so much. Welcome back, and so the 27 minutes are up, and of course it might take a little more time or a little less time in your oven, however you do it, but that's how it works in mine. And here you can see the baked loaf, and you'll see how well it comes out of the silicone pan. So all I have to do is do that, and there it is. So I'm going to let it cool a little bit, and then I'll slice some of it, and you can see what the inside of the loaf looks like. So thanks again. See you in a bit. Welcome back. So I thought I'd slice a little of the bread for you. And basically the best way to slice bread is on its side and when it's completely cool. Unless you're going to make thick slices, then it doesn't matter if it's warm or cool. And this one's still a little warm, but I'll take a little off the end just so you can see the crumb of it. And then I'll slice some white bread that I also made today so you can see that as well. So once again, I have it on my side, and there's the inside of the bread, and that's the wheat. And then I'll slice some white today. Actually, I have already sliced this one, but I'll just take a little slice. And this one's totally cool. So this one I can easily cut thin slices on, which you can't do when bread's warm. It just doesn't work. And I kind of like this like a medium slice, but you can cut it any thickness you want. And so there it is, everyday bread, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it was helpful in your bread making. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day. Hey there, so there are a couple things I forgot to mention in the video that I thought might be useful. One is after, you know, I knead the dough and it's in the bowl and it's just rising in the bowl, I cover it loosely, and I just sort of put the lid on lightly, like that. So you don't cover it in any tight way or anything like that. Just cover it loosely somehow. And but you don't have to do anything that'll fall into the bowl, so be careful if you use a towel, right? And then the other thing is when you slice bread, you always want to use a serrated knife, and that's the kind with the little bumpies on the bottom. You don't want to use a knife like this that has a smooth bottom. Always a serrated knife. And then when I freeze, I always freeze my bread because, you know, it's, unless you're going to eat it really fast, it doesn't have any preservatives. So I slice it, and then I freeze it. And when I put it in the freezer bag, I put one slice right side up, and then the next one upside down, and right side up and upside down. And what that does is it makes sure they're not 100% flush with one another, so it's easy to break a slice off, a frozen slice off, so it'll stick together hard. And then the last tip I have is if you like sourdough bread and want to make sourdough bread, just mix your bread up, and instead of letting it rise in the bowl, put it in a bowl that is sealed and put it in your refrigerator and just leave it there for a week. Just forget about it and leave it there for a week. And then take it out and let it come to room temperature, which takes hours and hours and hours, so plan ahead. And then you let it rise, shape it into your loaf, and let it rise in the pan. You may find if it doesn't really want to rise well after it comes to room temperature completely, which is after hours and hours and hours, that you may sprinkle a little yeast on it and spray with a little water and knead that in, and then it will rise normally. But it makes outstanding sourdough bread, and it's easier than it probably sounds in my just saying that. But anyway, I just wanted to add those little tips on there, and thanks so much. Have a good one.